Hey guys, it's Lisa here, aka You Brought Me Home on Tumblr, aka 80s Child, coming back at you with another Charmed reboot review. I know I totally missed episode 5 last week. That's why I'm doing this review is going to be a twofer. Two episodes, one, two, 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 two episodes in one. It's been a busy week at work because we're gearing up for Black Friday and everything, and yeah, it's been crazy. So I just didn't have the time to do episode 5. So I'm going to combine two reviews into one episode. Today we are reviewing Charmed Season 1, Episodes 5 and 6. Episode 5 being Other Women, and Episode 6, Kappa Spirit. You know, for every decent episode for the show that I see, or halfway decent episode that gives me hope that this show has potential and can go far, it's like one step forward, two steps back, and then I see another episode that reminds me why the show has so many problems in the first place and how much it really needs to be fixed. Okay. Other Women is basically like a relationship shit show. It's focused around the relationships that the three girls have with individual people. It's her relationship with Nico and the fallout that occurs after Nico almost finds out about magic. For Maggie, it's the fallout of her kiss with Parker and what that does to her friendship with a chick who honestly really doesn't deserve it in the first place. And the fallout for her future with the Kappas. And for Macy, it's the fallout of her relationship or lack thereof with Galvin, because she has managed to keep putting him off so much with sister problems and family issues and her own personal issues that he's completely moved on. So each one of them has managed to put off that special, or put off someone in their lives to the point where they're on the verge of losing that person. And each one of them takes it in a different way. So this episode, again, because these are very episodic, one starts where another one leaves off. Nico is still reeling from Tripp's death. She feels responsible, that it was her fault that she didn't, she considered him a friend, a very close friend, a partner, and she feels like she didn't know him at all. Like, how could I not know this about him? And then she starts to realize that she doesn't entirely believe that he would do something like this. She feels like she did know him at least well enough to know that he's not a serial killer. And by the way, wow, elders are assholes. Not only did, you would think that they would clean this up by saying that Tripp was a victim of the killer instead of the killer himself. But I guess they wanted to put the final nail in the coffin so the police wouldn't be investigating anymore. And it's really sort of fucked up because Tripp didn't deserve it. Tripp wasn't guilty. He didn't do anything wrong except be a really good cop. I mean, at first I thought Nico was going to suffer the Andy curse, but it's actually the Tripp we hardly knew ye. But Nico's kind of the same. She kind of suffers the same Andy curse, but not in the same way. Because she doesn't die. They just wipe her from existence. A very convenient way to write her out of the story. But I don't think they'll ever truly be able to write her out because, Mel loves her still. So the memory she has of her is always going to be there. Anyway, so she doesn't believe that Tripp is the killer. She thinks that he was set up. So her spidey sense is like, and so she starts to investigate. She believes that there has to be some place where Tripp has whatever the evidence was that got him to believe, that the sisters had something to do with it. Mel is trying to, keep her away from this because they're afraid that she's going to find out about magic. But Nico will not give up. And eventually she runs afoul of another demon who has apparently bought Macy's lab. The demon runs some sort of corporation. He buys Macy's lab in a bid to get his hands on witch DNA, apparently. They're trying to get the DNA of the charmed ones, and they think that's the easiest way since Macy works there. So, what they don't realize is that this guy is bad juju, but you should have, considering, one, he has the most demon-y name, most bad guy villain name you could possibly think of, and the way that he's dressed, the way that he acts, the whole aura that he gives off is very wow, you're not even trying to hide the fact that you are evil. Holy shit. I mean, even what made the big bads of season 1 so interesting was the fact that you didn't realize that they were bad until at least halfway through the season, because they were so good at hiding it. So when it finally came out that these two were, that one was a demon from hell and the other was his Hellbeast partner, it was like, what? Because you didn't see it coming. They seemed so inept and so innocent that you would not have seen it coming. So it was, and that's a credit to the actors and to the writing. But this guy is so obvious, he might as well wear a flashing neon sign that says, villain here, vanquish me. He's not very two-dimensional or well-rounded. At least he doesn't seem to be. But then you don't really get a lot of information about him. You don't even really get his real name. You just get, I guess, whatever the fake name is that he's using to buy the lab. He's like your typical bad guy. He's even played by an actor who played a bad guy on Reign. So, I mean, he's very, typical one-dimensional static bad dude. And his little hench dude, the shape shifter who defiles Tripp's grave, is even more static. Because his only object in life is to fuck people over. So he goes over to the grave after the funeral and he literally defiles Tripp's grave, and he turns into some sort of black mist or whatever and goes into the grave because he needs to, I guess, commiserate with Tripp's body in order to take his shape. Normally he could just see a person and then take their shape, but because Tripp is buried on 6 feet under the ground, he has to literally go under the ground to see his body. So he takes Tripp's form, and this is what sets Nico off, because he goes to her pretending to be Tripp, and she's freaking out oh my god, I thought you were dead, blah 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 blah. It's no, I had to fake my death because of all this, and I think I finally found out who did it, so I had to fake my death, because they were going to kill me and blah blah blah, and I have all this proof. You need to come with me and I'm going to show it to you. And I'm like, wow, that is the worst freaking wow. Listen, I'm not to knock Nico, but he doesn't give her any proof that he's Tripp other than his visage. And all he says to her is that I had to fake my death because I found out what was really going on, and if I didn't, they were going to kill me. And she completely buys it, and then he asks her to go off to some unknown place where he's keeping, I guess, his cabin, where he's keeping all the proof. And he says to her, I need you to get the proof for me. I can't go to the cabin because they're watching. I need you to go. He doesn't know where the cabin is, but he knows that she knows there must be some sort of proof, and he needs to follow her to the proof to get rid of it. So he gives her small little clues saying, he drops some hints saying that I found proof and I need you to go get it and make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. But he doesn't know exactly where the proof is. And she totally buys it. She's supposed to be a homicide cop, right? Bells or whistle's supposed to be going off in her mind, right? something about this just doesn't seem right to me. Like, Trip seemed like a genuinely good cop. Like, he knew when something was fishy. He knew when something didn't make sense. But Nico is so wrapped up in a relationship with Mel that she doesn't seem to be able to see the forest for the trees. And I'm not trying to down her relationship. It's just, she's not a very good cop. But then again, how can we know what kind of cop she is? We've barely seen her on screen. Oh, Nico, we hardly knew ye, you know? I feel bad because this is a very important relationship in the series, and it's reduced to, oh, well, we can't have her around anymore because, you know, if she finds out about magic, it's going to mess everything up, so we have to get rid of her. She's barely in the show 5 episodes before she's written out. Now, so Nico knows that Trip has a cabin in the woods, and she figures that's where he stored all the proof. So she goes there and she finds all these pictures on the wall. She finds pictures of Mel, Macy, and Maggie and their mother, and all this like stuff about witchcraft and demons and everything. And she's like, oh my god! And she starts taking pictures of it with her phone, and she calls Mel and sends her the pictures. Mel's like, oh shit! This whole time, Mel has begun to realize that even though she wanted to tell Nico the truth, because the demons have tried to attack her at least twice, that it's no longer safe for her. And by having a relationship with her, she's innocent and she's being put in danger when she doesn't need to be. So she goes looking through the book and she finds a really powerful magic spell. Something like what their mother had used. And it's to rewind time, I guess. Or like sever a specific thread of a person's timeline. Meaning they don't physically rewind time. I mean, it doesn't go back to where she first met Nico. But that thread of the timeline where she meets her is erased. So that it'll be like she and Nico never met. And all the after effects of her meeting Nico will have never happened. The girls will still have the memory of knowing Nico, and Harry will, of course, because he's a magical being, but no one else will remember. Nico will not remember meeting her, and all the things that happened as a result will not have happened. So, according to Mel, that means that she won't even be living in their town, in Hilltown anymore, because she was dating, remember in, the second episode, I think, we find out that she left another woman to be with Mel, and at the time, she was living in a different place called Lakeview, and she was supposed to take a job there. Or she had a job at Lakeview, but she left that position, and she moved from Lakeview to Hilltown to be with Mel, or to be closer to her. So, when she severs that timeline, and makes it so that the two of them have never met, that means that Nico has never moved to Hilltown. Nico still lives in Lakeview. Also, as a result of this, unforeseen circumstances, which we don't find out till the end of the episode, apparently the day that Mel was supposed to go for her teaching assistant interview at the college, she almost overslept, but Nico was the one that was there to wake her up and make sure she got there in time. And because she severed that timeline and Nico no longer exists in her world, or Nico never moved to Hilltown, Nico was not there to make sure she woke up, and she slept through her interview and never got the job. So now she doesn't have a job anymore, and someone else, because she goes to the college that day to go to work, and someone else is teaching her class. She's like, what the fuck? Yeah, so unforeseen circumstance number 1. I'm sure there will be other unforeseen circumstances later on, but so she Mel tells her to send her the pictures because they need to make sure they keep at least some of that proof so that they can figure out exactly what Trip knew, and it might gain them some more. Cause according to Nico, this information that Trip has is not just about the murders, but also about what happened to their mother. So they want to be able to have some of that proof for themselves. And Harry tells Mel, make sure you memorize everything in those pictures, because once you sever that timeline, those pictures will disappear because she will have never taken them. They'll disappear from her phone. Anyway, so Mel says, hold on, I'm coming down there to get you, because she knows that Nico's not safe there. And the demons, whoever's after her, will track her there. So she goes to the cabin, and while she's on the way to the cabin, the demony demon dude, who is a very obvious demon, makes his real visage known, and then proceeds to light the cabin on fire with some, what Harry calls hellfire. It's green. It burns very hot, and it's a wonder that the cabin didn't burn to the ground almost immediately. So Nico is unconscious on the floor. Mel gets there. She tries to freeze the fire, but it doesn't work because it's hellfire. And it probably would have been nice if she had known that, and she probably would have known that if, hey, wow, guess what? Read the fucking book! That's all I'm going to say. Every time one of them does some stupid shit, all I'm going to say in my reviews is, read the fucking book. I'm sure there is information in there that you need to know about the types of things that you can and cannot freeze, and different types of magical fire. Anyway, Mel manages to get her out safely, but that's when she realizes that, this is the straw, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, and she can't keep going like this anymore. She can't keep risking Nico's life. So, as difficult as it is, she has Macy and Maggie cast the spell while she's in the room with Nico, so she could say goodbye to her. And it's a really impressive 360 shot of how they make this happen. I usually don't like too much CGI in shows, but they actually did a really good job, because you see all the facets of that particular timeline, how they met and everything they did, all the pieces of their time together. Kind of in it, you see it kind of fade like to dust and sand. And then the last one to fade away is Nico herself. She fades away. And of course, Mel is probably upset and in tears, and the sisters trying to comfort her. And it's very reminiscent of what happened when Phoebe had to vanquish Cole. Although that was much more pronounced. I'm not trying to downplay Mel's grief or anything, but what Phoebe had been through was insanity. Like, she married him under false pretenses. He wound up impregnating her with a demon child. I mean, it was pretty horrible shit. Anyway, let's see. The sad thing is that while you feel for Mel, it's difficult to grieve the loss, because we never really knew who Nico was as a person. We didn't get to know her well enough to feel for her, or to worry for her, or to be upset at her being gone. She was only there for 5 episodes and then she's gone. I mean, it's the same thing with the mom. I read in an article online, a Charmed review, and one of the reviewers made a really good point. They said it is difficult. That the show makes it very difficult to miss the girl's mother because she's constantly fucking there. Even though she's not in the present day, she's in flashbacks, and maybe if the girls cast a spell and they go back in time, she's there. So you constantly see her. So it's hard to miss her, and it's hard to have those overwhelming, oh my god, their mother's there moments. Like in the original show, I can count the number of times on my hand that you actually saw Patty in the show's entire 8-year run. And Graham's was only a little bit more, but Graham's, it was more understandable for Graham's, to be there more often because she has not been dead as long as Patty had. And the impact of Graham's dying was not as great. I mean, they had been with Graham's their whole lives, and they known for many years that Graham's was sick. So this was something, I mean, yes, it was sad that she was gone and they missed her terribly, but like they were prepared because she'd been sick for some years, so they knew that this was coming. Their mother, they lost their mother when they were very little, and the shock of that and the pain of that is something that had haunted them their entire lives. So the few times that you did get to see her, like when Piper got married, and in the first season when they went to 1976 because of the wizard Nicholas, and they went back to stop him, and they got to see her. That was literally the first time they had seen their mother since they were children. I shit you not. In the first year of the show, 1998, that was the first time that any of them had seen their mother since 1977. 20 years since they had seen her. And then you didn't see her again until season 3, when Piper married Leo. And that was only by the grace of the elders sending her there for one day. Sending her there for one day as a gift, as a wedding gift. I mean, that makes you feel each and every time that she comes, the few times that she does, you feel it. You feel the, oh my God, it's Patty, because you don't see her very often, and you can see in the girls' eyes how desperate they are to see her and how happy it makes them. And I know that Maggie and Mel are also very happy to see her, but it's hard to miss her when she's constantly there. And I'm so fucking over the fact that every time they see her, it's only Mel and Maggie. Like, Macy doesn't deserve to see her own mother. You can't even count what happened in fucking episode 2 because it wasn't their real mother. It was a demon pretending to be her. So she's never actually got the chance to see her. Oh my God. Where is the fucking... Okay, you have a call a restless spirit spell, but you don't have a call the dead. Why can't you have a call the dead like you do in the original show? Wouldn't that make it easier for them to see their mother and to talk to her and maybe get some... Because, yeah, that would be too easy, right? Too easy to get the answers about why she died. Can we just once allow this poor girl to see her mother? Please. Especially now that she's gotten this new info about herself and more questions. So, Nico's gone. I feel bad because I didn't really have any reaction beyond feeling bad for Mel, because I had no connection to Nico. Like, she was only there for 5 episodes, and even in the episode she was in, she was hardly there. So it was hard to feel the emotional loss other than what Mel was going through. And on Macy's side, okay, Macy gets to work. She finds out the lab has been bought, blah, 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 and that Galvin apparently has a new girlfriend. And he doesn't seem to be acting quite Galvan-y. And she's starting to wonder if something is maybe not right about this new girlfriend, because he's like all over her like a cat crawling a post. And to her, it doesn't seem like Galvin's personality. Doesn't seem right. At first, I was almost inclined to believe it, but when he comes up, when she sees him at the bar, and he tells her, you pushed me away. Unless I got the wrong signal, because isn't that what you did? I moved on. Was that wrong of me to move on? I felt it was a little quick, but not too terribly quick, because even though they kissed, they didn't really have a relationship. I think they only maybe went out on one date and kissed like once. All the other times, either Macy had to put him off because of witch stuff going on at home, or because she herself just wasn't ready, or whatever personal reason that she had. So it takes to the end of the episode for her to acknowledge that, that what she thought wasn't true. She thinks that the reason why Galvin is not acting like Galvin is because the woman, who is just too beautiful and too perfect, must be a succubus. According to Maggie, she must be a succubus. Because Macy can see this symbol on Galvin's back. According to Harry, succubuses usually mark their prey. But a succubus has wings and a tail, right? So they're trying to figure out if she's hiding wings and a tail, and they notice that she has a tramp stamp on her lower back of wings and a tail. And they're like, well, that's a way to hide wings and a tail, right? So they immediately assume that she's some supernatural creature, and they whip up some sort of vanquishing potion. They go over to her apartment to try and vanquish her. It doesn't work. Because, she's not a freaking demon. Macy just cannot accept the fact that Galvin has moved on. However, the symbol on his back, that's real. Because the girlfriend was nice enough to play it off like, she's just drunk. She doesn't know what she's saying. And the two of them go to leave, but Macy still sees the symbol on Galvin's back, and she's wondering what exactly that's all about. Because she's afraid that something bad has happened to him. And she's trying to figure out what exactly it is. I'm glad of the fact that she's accepted by the end of the episode that the reason why Galvin moved on, was because that was the signal that she was giving off. It doesn't make her a bad person. It's just them's the break. Sometimes that happens. And if she continued to not want to accept the fact that Galvin had moved on, she runs the risk of losing him as a friend. And you could even tell the girlfriend was kind of getting suspicious, like, this chick is freaking weird, And also, Maggie kind of bore some responsibility in there, too, for egging her on. But, I think Maggie, in her own way, was trying to do something good to make up for the bad things she did in the previous episode, kissing Parker. She goes to talk to, I forget the chick's name because I really don't like her. She's a total hose beast. She goes to apologize to her about what happened with Parker, and the girl's crying and freaking out, and she's like, she's a mess, and she says to her, I want you to go on social media and find out who kissed my boyfriend, because I'm going to take him down. And Maggie's like, oh shit. Because it's her. She doesn't know how to tell her, because she's so upset. And when she hugs her, she gets this telepathic thing from her, like, oh, you're such a good friend. I trust you. And which makes her feel even worse, because she obviously broke this girl's trust by kissing her boyfriend. Needless to say, by the end of the episode, she comes clean to her. She admits that she was the one that kissed Parker. She was trying to distract him, and it got out of hand, that she never meant to do it, but it happened. And she was very sorry, and she begged her forgiveness. But the girl's like, you know what? Screw you. You're out of Kappa. I never want to see your face again. And being in Kappa was a very big deal for Maggie. So this is like, it's for her. This is a devastating thing for her. So for each story, each one of the girls, like, has to do with betrayal of some sort. And for Mel literally is Nico's other woman because she left her girlfriend for Mel. For Maggie, she herself is the other woman who kissed the girl's boyfriend and shouldn't have done it. And Macy, her life feels upended by Galvin's other woman. So by the end of the episode, they're still trying to figure out what the symbol is on Galvin's back. Maggie is properly devastated that she will not be getting into Kappa and that she's lost her friend because of a stupid mistake. And Mel is a devastated mess because she's had to let Nico go. We still do not know anything about the demon guy or what his motivations are other than wanting to get his hands on witch DNA for some ulterior purpose that may or may not have something to do with why their mother died. So moving into episode 6. Oh boy, do I have some things to say about episode 6. Kappa Spirit. This has mostly to do with some lingering stuff between Galvin and Macy, but mostly to do with what's going on in the Kappa house. Maggie is desperate to smooth things over with bitch face about what she did kissing Parker, and she tries to apologize, but all that serves to do is make the girl even more pissed off because she literally does not want to see Maggie's face. Now, the first time that she sees her, that's purely a coincidence thing. The girls were at some kind of nightclub bar called The Haunt, and I'm wondering how the hell Maggie is even in there in the first place, because you just said that Maggie is a college freshman, right? Which means she's 18 or 19, unless she decided to start college late. She's not even old enough to fucking drink. So, that right there is messed up. They need to make the ages of the girls a little more apparent. All I know for sure is that Macy, at the very least, was born in either 1989 or 1990. Likely 1989, because her mother was pretty heavily pregnant with her. Anyway, the girls were already at the club, and the sorority chicks walk in. Maggie sees her there, and she wants to apologize again because she's desperate to try to get into Kappa and smooth things over, but the girl doesn't want to look at her face, and she has a picture of mojitos, and she's going to give it to her and say, like, peace offering, and the girl is about to pour it on her head when Mel sees what's going on, and she freezes it so that it won't happen, but Maggie's like, no, you need to let her do it. She's angry. Maybe if she gets her anger out, I can fix things. She's like, no, you don't deserve to have her pour a pitcher over your head. It's fucked up. So she doesn't necessarily make it not happen, but she, instead of getting on her head, she kind of moves the liquid down a little bit so it gets on her boots. Okay. Problem number 1. Not even counting the whole underage drinking thing. I am really tired of seeing them have so much control over their abilities so early on. That should not be a thing. I remember in the first season of the original Charmed, when they went back to 1976 to deal with Nicholas, who attempted to kill their mother. When they went to their house and they saw themselves as children, I think Prue was like 5 and Piper was 3. When they saw themselves as little children, they were in awe of how much control that these children had over their powers and how much ability they had to, like, Prue would throw a teddy bear up and, she would use her TK to levitate the bear into midair, and then Piper would freeze it, And I remember them playing with the kids in the park, watching the two little girls play in the park, and they were in absolute awe of how much control the girls had over their powers. But these girls had had the powers for years, practically since they were in the womb. So they had more time to develop them. Even though they were little, they still had more time to develop them. And they were saying, I only wish I had that kind of control over my powers. And about as much time had passed in season 1 leading to that particular episode as has passed now in the reboot. They should not have that kind of control over the powers yet. They just shouldn't. The whole point of them learning their magic and learning their craft is that it's not something that can happen overnight. It's just not. And the show really has a fault in this that needs to be fixed. Because it does not seem realistic that they could learn this shit that fast. Macy even fucking says, hey, I got dressed using my mind. Why are you putting your clothes on with telekinesis? Like, what the fuck? First of all, magic for personal gain. Guess y'all never learn. And I know, shout out to Obscurus Lupa and her very funny reviews of all 8 seasons of Charmed. I know that she used to say that in the beginning, the consequences of magic seemed to be important. And then after season 4, it was like, oh, who the fuck cares anymore? And they would do whatever they wanted, I get it. You shouldn't be surprised that they don't care about the personal gain. I mean, almost every spell they cast has something to do with personal gain in it. I just feel like they should not have that kind of control over their powers yet. I want to see the powers develop naturally, so that when the time comes when their powers grow, like in, was it season 3 or whatever, when Piper started to be able to blow things up, that was a big deal. A big deal. When Prue gained her astral powers, that was a big deal. When Phoebe was able to levitate, that was a big deal, because their powers were growing before our eyes. We were seeing them develop. The way that they show it now, it's like they're almost at the kind of control it takes to not only freeze a room, but then manipulate one single aspect of that room, meaning the liquid in the pitcher, to maneuver it down. Takes a level of control that the 3 of them do not have. Like, at all. Do not have. That situation needs to be addressed. It needs to be fixed. Someone on this show needs to get this shit straight, because it's really annoying. But anyway, the liquid winds up falling on Maggie's shoes, and she's like, oh, your shoes are so trash. Oh my god. I don't know why you care what happens to this girl, but again, your wishes, you have to save the innocent, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why she cares so much about being in the fraternity, out in the sorority. I also find it funny that she's... Okay, I have to give you guys context before I go any further. So, that doesn't work. Next morning, Macy goes to the lab to go to work. Galvin is there, and everybody's moving a bunch of boxes in, and the head of the lab tells Macy, after chastising her for not finishing some work that she was supposed to do, he says she needs to give her blood, because the new owners of the lab want everybody to give a little vial of blood so they have DNA on everybody in case of an emergency. Okay. That should immediately raise red flags to you. Like, as a scientist, that should have already... Ding, 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 red flag. But it doesn't. She gives her blood. We obviously know this is an underhanded way for the demons in charge to get their hands on on Macy's. I mean, they're making everybody donate just so they can get hers. I mean, it's ridiculous. They could have just picked up a glove that she was wearing, or maybe found a piece of hair in her hairbrush. They didn't need to go as far as making everyone donate blood, but I guess they wanted to do it in the most implausible way. Anyway, so Galvin is still, there's a definite perceived awkwardness between Macy and Galvin because he's not sure if she's comfortable with the new girlfriend or if he's even comfortable around her, and Macy feels awkward, and yeah, it's very difficult for them to talk. Now, Galvin is planning his birthday party. He's inviting all his friends from the lab, but he doesn't initially invite Macy. And when she overhears him talking about it with his friend, she's like, "Oh, that's cool. I would definitely want to come." I'm like, Macy, if he didn't invite you, it's for a reason. Yeah, that's kind of fucked up that he didn't, but it's probably to salvage any remaining friendship there is left between you and him. Because he knows if you do show up, it's going to be awkward between you and the girlfriend. But she swears that she's going to come, she's going to bake, and blah, blah, blah. It'll be fine. Oh no, it's cool, we're fine. Whatever. But Macy's using this as an excuse to get closer to Galvin so she can figure out the symbol on the tattoo thing that's on his back. So anyway, she tries to bake a cake, but that doesn't work. She burned it. So Harry offers to go with her. Oh, did I tell you? Harry is now living at the house. That just totally out of nowhere. That started in episode 5. There was a lot of funny shenanigans in episode 5 where they catch him in his underwear. The very first scene in episode 5, Macy's taking a bath, and Harry at 1 a.m., because apparently that's her quiet time. And Harry walks into the bathroom to go take a shower, and almost sees her naked. Why Harry is there in the first place, I have no idea. Apparently the elders think the girls require more protection because ever since they cast the exorcism spell, the elders have taken the Book of Shadows to look it over to find out more about the Harbinger and whatever, blah, blah, blah. So they don't have the added protection of the book, so they've inserted Harry into the house to make sure that they're protected. But it's very awkward because the girls are used to being on their own and they're not used to being with a dude around the house. Yeah. Hijinks supposed to be funny. Not really that funny. Anyway, so in episode 6, they're still asking Harry, hey, are we going to get this book back already? You know, it's kind of getting tiresome. He's like, I'm still waiting to hear. As soon as I find out, I will let you all know. But what we don't know is the elders have already told him that he doesn't need to be there anymore, that everything's okay. But he's finding it a little hard to leave because these girls have become important to him. He doesn't have much family, or any family, supposedly, so that he can remember anyway. In episode 5, we learn that when Nico was discussing the spell about taking away when Mel was discussing the spell about taking away Nico's memories, we learned a very important piece of information about Harry that actually makes him less Giles and more of a human fucking being. We learned that he was born in 1920 in England, obviously, but that's all he knows about himself. That when he was made a white lighter, it was because of some particular heroic act of valor, he's not sure what it is, that inspired the elders to offer him the ability to be a white lighter, but in exchange he had to give up all memories of his human life. So he doesn't remember who he is. He knows his name, and he knows when he was born and where he's from, but that's it. All the memories of his past are gone. So it hasn't exactly been easy for him either. I mean, he doesn't have the emotion to miss it, but he still feels lonely because he's kind of isolated. He doesn't have a family. He has very few friends. It's hard to keep friendships when you're a magical being. So he considers the girls family in a sort of way, or at least friends anyway. So he's the one that talks to Mel about the spell with Nico, because if anybody understands what it is to lose a part of who you are, it's Harry. So he wants to make sure that she understands exactly what she's getting herself into before she takes that step. Anyway, back to episode 6. So the girls at the sorority think that Miss Thing is too high strung and that she needs to, find her zen or what the fuck ever. So they tell her she needs to chill out. They go back over to the sorority house, and she goes looking around trying to find some sort of candle to light so that she can relax. And she happens upon this really ornate white and blue candle. What we don't realize is that is a sorority, like, part of the initiation is that each girl gets their own sorority candle. And this candle is old. It's been there for like over 20 years. She lights it, she does her Zen thing, and as a result, she frees a spirit that's been trapped in the candle. And the spirit's name is Brenda. She used to be a sorority sister back in 1989. And she drank too many wine coolers one night and walked up onto the roof and fell off and died. So Maggie's like, I had no idea this girl even existed, and she's sure that she knows the face and the names of every sorority sister that's ever passed through that house, because that's part of the initiation process that she had to go through. She had learned their name, their birthdays, their coffee preferences, blah, 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 or their favorite drink or whatever. And she'd never heard of this girl. In the course, but what she does know is that Brenda doesn't seem right. Because after her failed attempt to smooth things over at the bar, she goes over to the sorority house to try and talk to her again. Miss Thing don't want to see her face. Get the fuck out. And then Brenda is there. Brenda, the moment that I laid eyes on Brenda, I knew that she wasn't supposed to be there. She looked like frickin' Jubilee from the X-Men. She had the big, like, thick blue eye shadow on, the big fucking earrings, the bright pastel colors are very reminiscent of the late 80s, early 90s. Her hair was like the side ponytail with the crimping and everything. It was very 80s. Trust me, I should know. My handle is only 80s child. I trust me. So I could already tell that she definitely did not belong there, and that she either had a serious 80s fixation or she was a spirit. So in the course of doing research, because Maggie is certain she doesn't know who this girl is, she finds out that Brenda was a sorority sister back in 1989 who, as I said, one night drank too many wine coolers, climbed up on the roof and fell off and died. So they have to figure out what kind of ghost she is if they're going to get rid of her, because she seems to have some unearthly sway over Hosebeast. I'm sorry for giving her all these cool names. Just I can't remember what her fucking name is, and she's truly is a Hosebeast. And the ironic thing is that, all right, so they think that she is a banshee and that she's upset because of how she died and that she hasn't been able to move on. So they think that they have to recreate the moment of her sadness in order to help her move on. So they cast a spell and they wind up going, they don't literally go back in time to 1989. They just kind of recreate a moment in time, because no one can see them and no one can hear them, but they can see everything that is going on. And the girls are wearing leotards. The music is very 80s. Everybody's hairstyles is very 80s. And they follow the girl over to the sorority table because apparently the sorority sisters are raising some money for charity by dancing aerobics or something. I know, it sounds stupid. Because really all that's good for is creepy guys watching them, as Maggie said. So when Brenda comes up wanting to know when her shift is to go dance or do aerobics, they're like, you're not a part of the sorority anymore, biatch. Get away from our freaking table, biatch. And she's like, what? You know? And at first you feel bad for her because you feel like she's being bullied. Like, what the fuck is this shit? You know? But you really shouldn't be surprised because the girls in the sorority in modern times is so ironic that Maggie just looks on in abject shock like, oh my god, they're being such fucking husbands. How can they treat her like that? My Kappas would never do something. Really, bitch? Really? Because your group in your house right now are worse than this. Remember, they didn't have social media then. You guys have social media now. Do not tell me that the girls in your sorority house are better than those girls. Trust, they're not. They just do their bullying in a different way. Biatch. So they turn her away. She gets upset, and apparently that's what leads to her getting drunk off the wine coolers and throwing herself off the roof. But instead of trying to stop her or trying to figure out what happened, they see their mother sitting on a bench. And they gravitate over there, well, Mel mostly, because she wants to see her mom. And they realize that she's heavily pregnant with Macy. So now we know at the very least that Mel and Maggie were born in the 90s somewheres. It's 1989, so that would make Macy in her late 20s, like 27-ish. No. That would actually make her 29. If she was born in 1989. If she was born in 1999, that would make her 28. So she's actually about the same age that Prue was when the show first started. Because Prue was 28. And she's sitting next to a Hispanic woman who looks like an abuelita. Like, she seems a little too young to be a grandmotherly type. Maybe an aunt or a close friend. But she's dressed in all black lace like you would associate with an abuelita. And they're discussing the baby, and Marisol is saying she feels that there's something wrong with the baby, something not right, something dark, but she's not sure. And the woman she's sitting with is trying to give her comfort and saying, don't worry, everything will be fine. But she doesn't discuss the father. Although you get the distinct feeling that maybe this pregnancy was not supposed to happen in the first place. So there's more questions there. And Mel and Maggie are like, well, she can't be right because Macy's fine. There's nothing wrong with Macy. She came out just fine, right? So they go back to their time. And they have to solve this issue with... They think that they know how to deal with the ghost. So they copy the spell that they need. They go over to... They need to do research to try to figure out what exactly the ghost wants. Because they figure if they know what the ghost wants, then they can make the spell work. So they go over to the sorority house to do some more research, and they find all the sorority girls tied up in the back room, and they're like, oh shit. So, well, actually, sorry, I'm getting things confused. First, did they go to the sorority house first? Or they go to the sorority sister's house first? No, first they go... Yeah, they go to the sorority house. They find all the girls tied up. They free the girls, and they realize that this Brenda chick has an unearthly control over Hosebeast, but they're trying to figure out why. So when Maggie's running down the hall, in this hallway, it's like a hallway of alumni. For each year, there's a picture of the graduate or of all the girls that have ever been in this house, going back years. And she comes across the 1989 picture, and she picks it up off the stand, and she runs back into the room, and she asks one of the girls. She points to the picture of the blonde-headed chick, the one that kicked Brenda out, and asks her who this person is and if they can find her. So they find her. And they go to talk to her under the guise of being reporters doing a story about sorority hazing. And what they find out is that Brenda was not the only person in the sorority to die. And Maggie's like, but how can I not know about this? Well, come on. The council covered it up, obviously. So after Brenda died, every couple of years, another girl would die. The circumstances would be the same. They would drink too many wine coolers, go up on the roof, and fall off. In total, I think about 7 girls have died, but it's been completely covered up. I mean, the information is in the paper, but there's never any ties to the sorority itself. So they realize that she's a banshee, and that they think that she's a banshee, and that she's never gotten any resolution to her death. So, and that maybe she's trying to kill Hosebeast because Hosebeast reminds her of older Hosebeast. So they go back to the sorority house to talk to Hosebeast, and they find her up on the roof with Brenda, and she's already drunk off her ass. And she's about to fall off the roof. So they cast the spell, but it doesn't work. And that's when Maggie realizes that the object of the girl's hatred, that it's not about Brenda. It's about betrayal. It's not about Brenda's betrayal. It's about Maggie's betrayal of Hosebeast. And that Brenda is using Hosebeast's anger at Maggie to fuel her control. So they call Harry, and they have Harry like levitate sort of to grab Hosebeast before she falls. Well, she starts to fall, but Harry manages to grab her and get her onto the ground. And Hosebeast grabs Maggie by the neck and tries to choke her out. And Mel tries to get her out, but she's like, no, let her do it. She has to get her anger out. That's what's fueling this fire. So she apologized to her. She said, I shouldn't have encroached on your space. That's what you really wanted. You needed some space to let your anger boil off, and I wouldn't even give you that much. I screwed up. I'm sorry. And finally, Brenda just, once that anger is no longer there for Brenda to feed off of, she's gone. So the Kappa house is no longer haunted. And that anger that was festering inside Hosebeast is kind of died down a bit. And I'm thinking that because she saved the girls, the other sorority sisters, and because she because she saved Host Beast, that she might have a chance to actually get into the sorority. I mean, when the episode ends, it's the night of the, what does she call it? That the ceremony for the sisters, the initiation. So she missed that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it won't happen. It just might. It might take some time for Hose Beast to come around. Anyway, so they fixed that. But the situation with Macy is not done. She goes over to Galvin's with Harry. Harry offers to cook some sort of Welsh snack dish. And she kind of goes there as point man, so that it won't seem like she showed up on her own. It won't be too terribly awkward. And the both of them are looking at Galvin, trying to see if the mark is still there. Harry, it's still there. Macy can see it, but Harry can't. So he doesn't know what to make of it. But the look that they're giving Galvin sets off the girlfriend, because she thinks they're looking at him in some weird way. And they're like, oh, no, sorry. So Macy goes to sit down next to a table where there's some pictures of Galvin's family. And she picks up this one picture of Galvin's grandmother, and she makes a comment to Galvin that she seems like she's so sweet. You know, just random chatter about his family. And he tells her that his grandmother was Haitian, and that he's part Haitian, part Dominican, a little Portuguese. And, you know, they're just random chit-chat talking, nothing bad. But they have a very natural chemistry to them. And the girlfriend sees it and immediately feels threatened. Like, why? You know, like why are you trying to get up with my boyfriend? You need to back the fuck off. I'm like, bitch, all they're doing is talking. I mean, she knew him before you did. They're friends. They work together. They have a right to converse. Anyway, so Macy feels like it's probably better that she leave. Because Galvin was right. It's very awkward, both of them being there. Harry doesn't initially say that he's going to leave, but I feel like he would anyway, because he wouldn't want to leave Macy alone. So they go back to the house, and Macy's doing a little more research, and she realizes that Galvin's grandmother was Yoruba, meaning she was like it's a religion that many Haitian people practice, and that his grandmother was like a priestess, and that the reason why he has the sigil is because it's a protective mark. So it's nothing bad, it's a protective mark. And that people who practice Yoruba give to their loved ones to protect them against evil. But the reason why only she can see it, she's still not sure. So she Googles a Yoruba priestess in the area, and she goes to see her, and she finds out that the reason why she can see it is because it would only be set off like that in the presence of something dark or evil. And the woman says to her, you know, you have a darkness in you, and your past is the key to the pillar of your darkness, or I'm not sure how exactly the key to your past is in the pillar or something. So she doesn't want to believe it, but it is very reminiscent of what Marisol was talking about when the girls went to the past. So when they meet up again at the bar to discuss what happened in their respective days, you know, Maggie and Mel tell Macy that the Kappa house is no longer haunted, and they were able to fix it. And Macy tells them about Galvin and that there's nothing wrong with him and the mark was just protective. And that only people who have some sort of darkness in them could see it, or evil, because it would only go off in the presence of something evil. And you can immediately see the look on the girl's face is like, oh shit, because they were going to tell her that they saw their mother and what their mother said, but then they're like, because they don't want to make it worse for her, you know? So Macy is left with these lingering questions like, is there something wrong with me? Am I dark? Am I evil? Who am I? And when they go back to the house, she's standing at the front door, and as she's looking outward at the front door, at the awning, you can see behind one of the pillars there's this little square, or like this rectangle shape that looks like some sort of covering. And Macy tries to pull it off with her fingers, but she can't make it budge, so she uses her powers. It's like a wooden plank that's just covering some spot on the pillar for some reason. And it feels out of place because everything, the pillars themselves are white. So there's no reason for a piece of wood like that, or a piece of brown colored wood, to be there, just there. So she pulls it off, and there's a dugout square behind it. And inside of it, there's this little metal box. And she goes to open the box, and inside the box, there's a key. An ornate, like, old-fashioned skeleton-type key. She doesn't know what it goes to, but it obviously has something to do with her past. So I have a feeling pretty soon in the episodes to come, we're going to find out more about Macy, possibly about who her father is, how her birth came to be in the first place, and why Marisol was so concerned about it. Is she going to tell her sisters about her findings? I don't know. I don't want her to think, oh my god, I'm evil, I can't be a part of this because I'm evil. I have a feeling that Macy's going to go through some sort of crisis of conscience about who she is as a person and whether or not she fits there. Especially if she finds out she's, I don't know. I don't want to say half demon like Cole or some shit like that, because I would hate for the show to go down that kind of road. We all saw how that ended. And if she was, wouldn't she have some other power too? Anyway, so at the very end of the episode, you see demon bad guy from episode 5 with the vial of Macy's blood. Not entirely sure what they're going to do with it, but whatever it is, it's not good. So that is episodes 5 and 6. I told myself I was going to give the show 5 episodes before I made a decision about whether or not I was going to keep watching. I feel like I've devolved into hate watch. I wanted to say, oh, now I'm just going to sit here and hate watch this. But I can't, because there are certain aspects of the show that are not too bad. But then again, there are other aspects of the show that are really bad. Like, I didn't like the way the ghost was done. You didn't realize until the very end that Brenda actually turned out to be a very manipulative person, because she was sleeping around with the other girls' boyfriends and did some horrible ass things. But you had no idea about it, because they didn't make that information known until the very end. Up until then, you were totally sympathizing with Brenda because you thought that she was wronged. I just liked the way that the original Charm did it better. I remember in season 1 there was an episode where and this person was actually played by John Woo. Or John Kim. What's his name? He's the Korean guy. The one who was in that show about the selfie chick. Anyway, he played a Chinese guy who was murdered by a Chinese gang, and because his spirit wasn't able to rest, that's when the girls first found out that they could see ghosts, because they're witches, most specifically Piper, and she grew quite an attachment to him. He was a very, very nice guy, and I think if he had been alive, they might even have dated. And she proceeds to spend most of the episode trying to figure out how he died so she can help him cross over. But when she does and he has to cross over, it's not an easy thing for her because she's grown quite attached. It was actually a very emotional episode. Less about what the gangsters had done to him and more about how death affects people. And not just the family members who are left behind, but the dead themselves. It's like a really good episode about how death affects the dead. Because the guy was walking throughout he was walking throughout San Francisco not really realizing that he was dead. I just thought it was a better, more emotionally round, I guess, than this. Again, you cannot form connections to the villains, and you don't even have enough there to hate them because they're so static and so one-dimensional that it's hard to get involved with the villains or be like, yo, when they're vanquished, because there's not enough there for you to care. That's one of the things about the show that really needs to be improved. Everything is so static and so one-dimensional, it's just hard to feel an emotional tie to anybody. So far, the only characters I've been able to feel an emotional tie to, I think, is Macy, because she's the only one that's actually had emotions, like a gamut of them. I know what you're going to say, but Mel has emotions. She was upset that Nico died. I'm like, yes, I know she was. But her only other emotion apart from that is distaste, anger, distrust, and a general hatred of men, which, again, okay, Mel, we get it. You hate men. You hate men. You fucking hate men. But she has to make this statement apparent in every single episode. Like, at first she chastises Maggie because she can't understand why Maggie is so adamant to get herself back into Kappa. Why would you want to deal with these girls and their internalized misogyny? And I'm like, oh my God. Not everything in this world is about you and your hatred of fucking men, okay? This is her life. Do I agree with her wanting to get back into Kappa? Probably not, because that's not my scene. But that's her scene. That's what she likes and what she wants. The least you could do as a sister is be supportive of that. You might not necessarily agree with it, but you're still going to support her because she's your sister. And this is something that meant something to her. And it wasn't until towards the end of the episode when Mel began to realize how important being a Kappa was to Maggie. And she, tells her that she's sorry for being so mean to her at first. But I will say, I count it as a major step forward in her character development that she was able to admit, because at the end of the episode, the elders have recalled Harry, since the book is back in the girl's possession. He doesn't need to stay there anymore. He's sad to have to leave. And they're sad to see him go. And even Mel's like, I'm going to miss you too. Which is a major step forward for her, I guess, because prior to that, she was all, I hate you too, Harry, for no apparent reason other than you're male and have a penis. I mean, Harry's never done anything bad to her, but yet she just hated him regardless because he was male. I will say that it seems like Mel is developing a little more. She's still got that internalized man hate that I really wish she would chill with. But at least she's found it in her to be able to have friendships with males and not instantly hate a guy for being a guy. Little steps, baby steps. So that is episodes 5 and 6. I know I said I was going to give it about this long before I made a final decision about whether I was going to keep watching it. I still feel like the show has potential. I don't know how much more slack, though, I can give the show. I just feel like they didn't do their homework very well when it comes to researching the magical part of it and how to make it more natural. I know this is only the first season. The show is still finding its way. Hopefully by the end of season 1, they'll have ironed out these kinks. They need to scale back on the magic. By magic, I'm talking about their powers, to make it more, make the progression of them learning their powers more realistic. Really getting tired of the spells being in Latin. I understand it makes it more realistic because it's magic, but we don't know what's being said. So it's hard for us to form a connection to the witchcraft if we have no clue what's being said whatsoever. And I'm sorry, but having taken Latin in college before, I can tell you right now, it's not the easiest language to memorize. So for them to take a picture of a spell and then say that they can memorize it on the car ride over, yeah, no. No. I don't mind if some of the spells are in Latin, but the important spells like calling a spirit, calling a sister, like the really important spells, there should be an English version so that if someone wants to put together like a fan book, they can do that and we have some idea of what's being said. That's why 20 years on, fans still remember the words of certain spells in the Charmed lexicon because they're so important. Hear my cry, spirits from the other side. Come to me, I call you here. Cross out the great divide! Yes, still remember that 20 years on. Because they're very important spells to the mythology of the show. And they're easy to memorize because they're in English. So it would help if they made some of them English. Or at least if it had to be in Latin or Spanish or whatever, maybe go online on the CW website and publish like an English translation, just so we can have some idea of what's being said. It would help a lot and would make the magic a little more personal. That's all I'm saying. All right, guys. Well, that's enough for me. It's been well over an hour. So I guess I will see you guys. I don't know if there's an episode this coming Sunday or not because it's Thanksgiving week, so there may not be. I don't think there was a preview for upcoming episodes, so it's likely there won't be. But if there is, I will see you guys next week for another review. And hopefully pretty soon here I can start doing the reviews I was supposed to be doing for this channel. 80s enthusiasm. Oh, my first review. I already know what I'm going to review. So this is actually a little spoiler for you dedicated fans out there. For Christmas, I'm getting myself the Nintendo Classic, the mini classic that has the 30 games in it. Booyah, bitches! Yes, I'm going to be reviewing the Nintendo because holy shit. Okay, I had to give you guys a heads up about this thing. I never was able to get one when I was a kid because my parents didn't have the money. I didn't actually get a game console until the Super Nintendo came out when I was like 14. Because that was only then that we were able to afford it. So I always had to go to my friend's house to play the original one because we couldn't afford it. So now actually it might not be the full size, but still it has all the games in it. It has Mario Brothers, holy shit! Woosah, power down. Okay. As soon as I get this thing, we're going to do an unboxing and we're going to review. Bang zoom. 80s, yo. 80s enthusiasm. All right, guys. I'll see you later. 80s child out.